Welcome back to my channel. It's nice to see you here. Thank you for coming back. And as I promised, I am back and we will continue to be consistent. In Jesus' name, amen. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Melissa Albert's Tales from the Hinterland. So this book is from the Hazelwood series by Melissa Albert. She's a New York Times best-selling author, although she's like an indie author. This is what the book looks like. Especially what I enjoy are the little illustrations, like in here. Illustrations of the book, if this thing can just focus. Tales from the Hinterlands. From the Hinterland. Whenever I hear that word, Hinterland, I just think of Barbie, and I love like the illustration in this. It's so beautiful. It has 12 chapters, as I said, and each of those chapters literally have their own like unique story. If I were to describe this book, I would say it's like a dark fairy tale kind of vibe. Dark fairy tales are something that have kind of been around for a long time. Like I feel like a lot of the fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, what's those other ones? There's so many ones. Even like popular Disney stuff, a lot of that is like originally very dark. There's stuff about Krampus, there are dark stories about Saint Nick, about Winnie the Pooh. Every single one of them, they have like a dark theories. Sleepy Hollow. This book is such a Sleepy Hollow type book. It's just like kind of the same vibe. There's mystery and some things are left unsaid that make you think and make you wonder. I've only read 5 stories, like I said, but it's really worth the read. And I find it interesting to read the dark counterparts to lighter stories. It really they show more substance. They're usually sadder, like the original story of The Little Mermaid and things like that. They're a lot heavier and they're a lot more thought-provoking. Like, is it worth it losing your life for someone you don't even know? Things like that. They also I would say no to that question I just asked. I did some research and it says here that the stories were collected by Melissa Albert, like I said. And something interesting, it says here, the name it says here is Althea Prosper Payne. So in another book called The Hazelwood by Melissa, what basically in the story, the grandmother in the story is called Althea Prosper Pine, and she has a granddaughter called Alice, and Alice is basically, I've not read the book, but from the description it says that Alice is starting to wonder whether the stories that her grandmother wrote were really fairy tale or if it's like about a different world. So it's interesting because Althea Prosper Payne is an author who wrote Tales from the Hinterland, but it's actually by Melissa Albert, and Althea Prosper Payne is basically a character that she created, and she's playing around with this like notion of a multiverse, like different worlds, different spaces, different dimensions where things work differently. Let me say different one more time. Where things work differently. And I think it's really creative. I was actually kind of confused when I was doing research because I was like, wait, did she write it or did Althea write it? But Althea is the supposed writer of the book in another book. So that's kind of creative how she's connecting all the books. I've only read 5 out of the 12 that are inside here, and I've enjoyed it so far. I think this is such a nice book actually to just read in silence. It's not so bad that it will creep you out. I think something odd about this is that it is like a fairy tale because you get the magic and everything, but there's also that sinister part of it, but it's not like it's not too much, you know. It's not that you read it and you're feeling so scared because everything is so quiet. It's like you read it and you're intrigued, because honestly there are a lot of horrible things that are mentioned in here, but the way it is written, it makes you think of a fairy tale. You don't, when you're reading a fairy tale, even though it has like a sad ending, you don't get as sad as you would if you're watching a normal sad movie or reading a normal sad book. They're different. It's a different type of feeling, you know, and that is what this brings. It's such a unique thing, because a lot of things that are mentioned here, I say, like I've said, they're like triggering, like straight up. It talks about straight up skinning people, killing people you care about, turning people into puppets, a lot of that. And you know, some methods and some things, some stories in here are crazy, but it's written in such a way that it's actually kind of fascinating to read. It's not something that's written to straight up scare you. It's written to intrigue you. It's written to be creepy, not scary. I see that as two different things. Another thing I really like about the design of this book is like each of the stories have this little, like when you start a story, here is like the starting page. You then have this little image just at the start of every single story. I think has this. And I just think it's an interesting layout. I love the little like illustration, the leaves and everything, because it's the same thing as the leaves out here. I just love the overall design of the book. I'm gonna talk about the first story just so you can see if you want to get it, because I think it's a very interesting read. So the first story is The Door That Wasn't There. So basically, I'm gonna give you like a summary type thing. Basically, in this story, there's a man and a wife and his two daughters, and they are living with their servants. So the man is kind of like nonchalant about his wife and his daughters. It seems like he doesn't really care about them. So he leaves, and then one day they open the door to their mother's room and she's no longer there, but there's like blood on the floor. The oldest daughter sees that and she's kind of haunted by that. The sight of blood kind of creeps her out. So the man comes back with a second wife, and he kind of dotes on her, is like at her every whim, and then he loses interest as he did the first time and leaves. And then that second stepmother is cruel to them, is wicked to them, to the two daughters. She would take them and lock them in the room where their mother died, where their mother disappeared. And the daughter, the oldest daughter, I think her name is Anya, she would look at the stain, the blood stain there, and it would creep her out so much. And then one day she heard this weird noise, and so she woke up, and something told her to do a spell and it would show her to another world. So what happened was that she was too scared to actually cut her hand and use the blood to open the door because of that trauma she had. So then she ends up like lying to her sister and telling her sister that her sister has to be the one to give the blood, because she, Anya, has to be the one to do the spell. She's the sorceress, basically. And the book says that her sister knows that she's lying, and because her sister knows that she's lying, she gets angry, and then slits too deep and then uses the blood to draw a door. They're able to go through, but they go through into this dark dimension, kind of a mirror dimension of the world that they were already living in, except it's if I remember correctly, there were skeletons and everything is dark and there's nobody there at all. And her sister ends up dying because, as I said, she cuts in too deep in her anger. And when she goes outside, she starts speaking back to the voice and asking the voice how she can get back. But the voice is that's the wrong thing to ask. and then from a tree falls these like this stone that's basically a gift from her dead sister, and the voice tells her to use it. So she uses that stone to spy on her family that's in the other dimension. And basically she's seen now that her father has, like, he now has a son. And so basically what she does is that she uses that stone, and then the son can see her for some reason, but the father can't, and no one else can. So the son starts to get obsessed with her. He starts falling in love with, well, I wouldn't say falling in love, but they write in the book that he's kind of obsessed with her, and he keeps visiting her every single night. And then Anya, what she does is like, if you want to see me, you have to do this. You have to cut your hand and rub the thing on, draw out the door and go through. And when he does it, she goes through, and so he's trapped in the other world. And she goes back, and it basically says that here it says she went to the kitchen and ate spoonfuls of honey. So it's kind of chilling how, you know, she killed her sister first to get there, and now she's tricked her brother to get trapped there. And then what happens is that she goes upstairs and she sees the woman there sleeping, and she slits her throat and then puts the stone in the woman's hand so that the father will find it, and then the father would be able to see the son, but he wouldn't be able to get him back. It's a sad story, but at the same time it's kind of like it shows what humans are capable of. I feel it's a fairy tale, you know, but I feel like fairy tales kind of show what certain humans are capable of. Like, she caused her sister's death, and then caused her brother to basically be thrown into a world he knew nothing about, where he would be alone, presumably for the rest of his life. So it's kind of off-putting. Wow, do you know I've been going and I forgot to wear my glasses? No wonder I couldn't see properly. Like the second story, Hansa the Traveler. I said I would only spoil one, but I really want to talk about the second one, so sorry. The second story, Hansa the Traveler, it's basically like your stereotypical girl wants to go, and girl has been kept like in a cage all her life, and she wants to go on an adventure, but she ends up losing something very precious, something that people would take very precious for the sake of that adventure. And at the end of the day, the reason she went for that adventure was to save her mother, but it's like she hadn't known her mother all her life, so she was basically sacrificed for her mother, and only to find out that basically what she did could be undone in just a matter of months or something. So it's kind of painful. It's kind of eye-opening, because it's like, you know, those ones that are always craving for adventure, always craving to leave the gilded cage. Sometimes the cage might be the only thing protecting you from how dangerous it is outside. Those are the kind of lessons you get in this. It's like, some people want more from their life, but it tells you sometimes wanting more can lead you to not appreciate what you already have. Those are the kinds of lessons you find here. It's not be kind or be passionate. It's a lot more complicated in these kind of stories, because it's not just one protagonist and then a few antagonists. Like, everyone has something that led to these events, that led to this tragic thing happening, which is basically what you get in this story. So I really enjoy it. So if you are interested, I would really recommend reading this. It's perfect for this winter time. Like, this is the best thing to read, especially when it's cold and you just, like, when I went outside, today I bought hot chocolates because I'm going to read this and I'll be drinking hot chocolate. I don't drink hot chocolate through the entire year, only during Christmas time. And I'm like, you know what, it's just a mood. Have a hot drink, have something that's kind of creepy, and you're reading it in the dark. Like, I actually do that. I know a lot of people watch horror movies and read horror books, but I don't do that. Like, I will do it. Like, I will turn off the lights to scare myself, because that's what I like. So yeah, go read Tales from the Hinterland. I'm sure you'll be interested in it.